In the vast, glittering landscape of American capitalism, the image of the billionaire is almost always inextricably linked to a specific kind of overwhelming opulence. When we close our eyes and imagine the lives of the ultra-wealthy, we see gated estates in the Hamptons, towering penthouses overlooking the Manhattan skyline, or sprawling, futuristic compounds in Silicon Valley, complete with private helipads, climate-controlled garages, and separate quarters for a small army of staff. We have been conditioned to believe that great wealth inevitably leads to great separation from the ordinary world. However, history offers us a striking counter-narrative. It is the story of Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart, and, arguably, the most influential retailer of the 20th century. His life offers a different definition of success. There is a documentary floating around the internet titled The Tragic Story of Walmart Family Mansion. But here is the truth. That title is a complete misnomer. The story of Sam Walton's home is not a tragedy. It is a deliberate, philosophical triumph. It is the fascinating chronicle of a man who possessed the financial means to purchase any luxury the world had to offer, yet chose to live in a way that mirrored the very customers he served. Over the next few minutes, we are going to take an in-depth journey into the history, the architecture, and the profound symbolic weight of the Walton family home in Bentonville, Arkansas. This was not just a house, it was the quiet epicenter of a global empire and a physical manifesto of a life lived with purpose. 215, Part 1, The Foundations of a Retail Titan. To truly understand the house, we must first peel back the layers of the man himself. Sam Walton was born in 1918 in Kingfisher, Oklahoma. This was a time and a place that demanded resilience. He grew up watching the world crumble during the Great Depression, an era that left an indelible mark on his psyche. Walton learned the value of a dollar not through economics textbooks, but through the harsh, biting realities of survival. His family was constantly on the move, uprooting their lives to chase whatever business opportunities his father could find. This instability instilled in young Sam a ferocious work ethic that would come to define his entire existence. He learned, very early on, a lesson that many wealthy people forget, that money is a tool for security, not a toy for public display. Long before the iconic blue Walmart signs began to dot the American interstate system, Walton was already a keen student of human behavior. As a young man and later as a franchisee of a Ben Franklin five and dime store in Newport, Arkansas, he became obsessed with the granular details of retail. He didn't just sell to people. He studied them. He watched how customers moved through the aisles. He observed how they reacted to different price points. And, perhaps most crucially, he noted how they responded to simple kindness. He realized something profound. The retail experience might be transactional in nature, but it is emotional in practice. People wanted to feel respected. They wanted to know they weren't being cheated. They wanted a fair deal. By 1945, having returned from serving his country in World War II, now Walton was ready to implement his own vision. He sought to create a shopping environment where working-class families could buy their everyday necessities, toothpaste, socks, school supplies, without feeling a sense of guilt over the cost. This philosophy, low prices, high volume, and unpretentious service, became the very DNA of Walmart. But here is where Sam Walton differed from the typical tycoon narrative. Usually, when an entrepreneur strikes it rich, they shed their humble roots like an old skin. They upgrade their friends, their hobbies, and their homes. Walton did the opposite. He integrated his roots into his future. As his wealth grew from millions to hundreds of millions, and eventually to billions, his lifestyle remained stubbornly, almost radically, consistent. And nowhere was this consistency more physically manifest than in the place he chose to lay his head every night, Bentonville. 530. Part 2. A Philosophy in Stone and Wood. The year was 1958. Sam and his wife, Helen Walton, decided it was time to build their permanent family home. At this point, Sam was already a successful businessman, though he was far from the global icon he would eventually become. The couple certainly possessed the funds to construct a neoclassical palace with towering columns or a Victorian estate with manicured gardens. Yet, Helen had a completely different vision. She wanted a home that prioritized harmony over dominance. They selected a secluded, forested lot on the east side of Bentonville. The land was rugged, defined by the dense, tangled beauty of the Ozark woods and a small stream that meandered quietly through the property. Most developers would have viewed the trees and the water as obstacles, things to be cleared, flattened, and tamed to make way for a massive lawn. The Waltons, however, viewed them as essential elements of the home itself. To realize this vision, they turned to a rising star in the architectural world, Fay Jones. Jones was a disciple of the legendary Frank Lloyd Wright and a staunch proponent of organic architecture. This was a design philosophy which dictated that a building should not sit on a hill, but should be of the hill. It should develop naturally from its surroundings, blurring the hard lines between the indoors and the outdoors. The structure that rose from the woods was a masterclass in understated elegance. It was a ranch-style home, keeping a low profile to the ground, constructed almost entirely from local stone and warm, natural wood. It did not tower over the landscape, it nestled into it. Jones utilized the natural stream by creating a small dam, resulting in a gentle waterfall and a reflecting pond that brought the soothing sounds of nature right up to the back porch. The design was not about impressing the neighbors or signaling status. It was about creating a sanctuary for the family. In many ways, the house was the architectural equivalent of Sam Walton's personality: grounded, sturdy, natural, and entirely lacking in artifice. 8:15. Part 3. The Fire and the Resurrection. Now, the video title we mentioned earlier alludes to a tragic story. This refers to the dramatic events of April 1972. In the early morning hours, a violent storm swept through Bentonville. The sky split open, and a bolt of lightning struck the Walton residence. The strike ignited a fire that spread with devastating speed through the wooden structure. Sam and Helen managed to escape unharmed, which was a miracle in itself, but the home they had built, the place where their 4 children, Alice, Rob, Jim, and John, had spent their formative years, was largely reduced to ash, rubble, and charred beams. For many wealthy families, a disaster of this magnitude would have been the catalyst for a massive upgrade. It would have been the perfect excuse to say, well, the old house is gone, let's relocate to a more prestigious neighborhood, or let's finally build that marble mansion that society expects a billionaire to own. The Waltons did neither. In a move that perfectly encapsulates their character, Helen contacted the architect, Fay Jones, and asked him to do something surprising. She asked him to rebuild the house on the exact same footprint. She wanted the same spirit. She wanted the same connection to the land. She wanted the same simplicity. There were adjustments, of course. The children were older now, so the new design prioritized open spaces for entertaining and family gatherings rather than nurseries or playrooms. They used sturdier, fire-resistant materials this time, and after much convincing, Sam finally agreed to install central air conditioning, a luxury he had previously deemed completely unnecessary despite the stifling heat of Arkansas summers. But perhaps the most telling anecdote from this period involves where the family lived during the reconstruction. They did not rent a penthouse. They did not move into a luxury hotel suite. Instead, Sam and Helen moved into a double-wide mobile home parked right on the property. Just picture that image for a moment. Here was one of the richest men in America, living in a trailer, stepping out in the morning to joke with construction workers, overseeing the rebuilding of his ranch house. This was not a publicity stunt designed for the press. There were no cameras there. It was simply who he was. He did not need a marble foyer to validate his self-worth. 11 o'clock. Part 4. Inside the Rebuilt Sanctuary. The rebuilt home, completed in the mid-1970s, remains a testament to the concept that less is more. To a visitor expecting the residence of a Fortune 500 CEO, the interior would be shocking in its normalcy. Let's imagine walking through the front door. It doesn't open into a grand two-story atrium with crystal chandeliers. Instead, it opens into a warm, inviting entryway that leads directly to the heart of the home. The main living room features walls of stacked stone, providing a sense of permanence, texture, and security. But the defining feature is the glass. Floor-to-ceiling windows stretch across the rear of the room, framing the Ozark forest and the reflecting pond outside. This design choice is significant. In many mansions, the focus is inward, on the expensive art, the gold leaf molding, or the imported Italian furniture. In the Walton home, the focus is outward. The architecture directs the eye to nature, enforcing a sense of humility. You are not the master of the world in this room. You are merely a participant in the natural order. Adjacent to the living room lies the hearth room. This is a cozy, intimate space anchored by a stone fireplace. The ceiling here features an intricate geometric pattern, a signature of Fay Jones, which adds a touch of intellectual elegance without feeling ostentatious. It is said that this room was the incubator for some of the most revolutionary ideas in retail history. Sam Walton was known for his famous yellow pad sessions. He would sit by the fire in this room, scribbling notes on a yellow legal pad, analyzing sales data, and brainstorming ways to shave just a few cents off a price tag. It is a powerful image. The strategy to build the world's largest company was not developed in a glass skyscraper in New York or Chicago, but in a cozy den in Arkansas, warmed by a wood fire. Then there is the kitchen. If the living room was the soul of the house, the kitchen was its heartbeat. Modern by the standards of the time, it was nonetheless strictly functional. It featured high-quality wood cabinets and stainless steel appliances, but it was designed for cooking, not catering. There were no hidden corridors for servants because there were no servants. Helen cooked the family meals. The family sat around a simple table. This ritual of the family dinner was sacrosanct to the Waltons. Even as the demands of Walmart grew and the company expanded across the nation, Sam prioritized being home for dinner. This space reinforced the family unit, ensuring that the children, despite their eventual massive inheritance, remained grounded in the rituals of ordinary life. Finally, we have Sam Walton's home office. This was perhaps the most paradoxical room of all. It contained a simple wooden desk, shelves filled with binders and reports, and a comfortable chair. There were no ego walls, no massive oil portraits of himself, no gleaming trophies on display. It was the workspace of a merchant, not a monarch. It reflected his belief that success wasn't about what you had achieved in the past, but what you were working on for the future. 1440. Part 5. Bentonville and the Ripple Effect. The decision to build and remain in this modest home had consequences that extended far beyond the property line. It fundamentally shaped the town of Bentonville and the corporate culture of Walmart itself. In the mid-20th century, Bentonville was a sleepy agricultural town. By choosing to keep his family and his company headquarters there, Sam Walton signaled to the world that one did not need to be in a coastal metropolis to build something world-changing. The Walton lifestyle, which was visible to everyone in town, created a unique culture of accessibility. Locals would see Sam driving his old Ford pickup truck, often with his hunting dogs in the back, wearing a beat-up baseball cap. They would see him getting a haircut at the local barbershop or eating breakfast at a simple diner. He was not a distant figurehead living behind high walls. He was a neighbor. This proximity to real people gave Walton a massive strategic advantage. And while his competitors were sitting in boardrooms in Chicago or New York, totally disconnected from the average consumer, Sam was living among them. He understood their struggles, their budgets, and their needs because he saw them every single day. His home was not a fortress that kept the community out. It was a part of the community fabric. Furthermore, the values nurtured in that home, values of education, community service, and art, spilled over into the region. The documentary highlights the Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art, founded by Alice Walton. This world-class institution, nestled in the ravine just like the family home, is a direct extension of the values Helen and Sam instilled in their children, that wealth should be used to enrich the community, not just the individual. Shin 1650. Part 6. The Strategic Power of Frugality. It is easy to look at the Walton home and see it merely as a personal preference for a quiet life. However, upon deeper analysis, the house serves as a physical manifestation of Walmart's corporate strategy. Walmart's core business model is built on everyday low prices. To achieve this, the company had to be ruthlessly efficient, cutting overhead costs wherever possible to pass savings on to the customer. Now, imagine if Sam Walton had lived in a $50 million estate, flown only in private jets, and thrown lavish, Gatsby-esque parties. His message of frugality would have rung hollow. Employees would have resented the call to cut costs, while the boss lived like a king. By living in a ranch-style house, driving a pickup, and flying economy class for much of his career, Sam Walton led by example. He possessed moral authority. When he told executives to share hotel rooms on business trips to save money, they did it, because they knew Sam would do the same. The house was not just a home, it was a corporate asset. It was proof that the company's mission was authentic. This servant leadership style is rare in the modern business world. The Bentonville house stands as a rebuke to the greed is good era of the 1980s. It proved that ambition and humility could coexist, and that you didn't need to project wealth to possess power. 1830. Part 7. A Legacy Beyond Wealth. Today, the Walton home in Bentonville stands as a quiet monument. Visitors who come expecting the grandeur of the Biltmore estate or the opulence of Hearst Castle are often struck by the normalcy of the Walton residence. But it is precisely this normalcy that makes it extraordinary. Visitors often leave the site not impressed by gold or marble, but inspired by the tangible reality of the American dream. The house tells the story of a family that reached the absolute pinnacle of financial success, but refused to let that success distort their reality. The legacy of the house is evident in the next generation. The Walton children, Alice, Rob, Jim, and the late John, grew up in rooms filled with posters and books, not antiques. They learned to do chores. They learned that their value came from their character, not their last name. This upbringing is likely why the family has managed to avoid many of the scandals and public implosions that plague other dynastic families. They were raised in a home, not a hotel. 1950. Conclusion. So, the tragic story of the Walmart family mansion is, in the end, a mislabeled tale. There is no tragedy in a life lived with purpose. The story of Sam Walton's house is a story of intentionality. In a world that constantly equates success with excess, Sam Walton's Bentonville home offers a different definition. It suggests that true success is the ability to remain true to oneself despite the immense pressure to change. It teaches us that a house is not a showroom for wealth, but a vessel for life. The stone walls and wooden beams of the Walton residence witnessed the birth of a retail revolution, but more importantly, they housed a family that kept their feet firmly planted on the ground, even as they changed the world. The house remains a symbol of the quiet, enduring power of humility, a reminder that the most impactful empires are often built from the most modest of headquarters.